And here's your host, Jan Rehoyo. Thank you, everyone. As you know already, my name is Jan Rehoyo. And today we're going to be talking about the presentation of heroism, specifically in the hit classic High Noon. Before we start any of this discussion, I want to ask you an important question. When I say the word hero, what image pops into your head? Maybe you think of this guy, or maybe one of these three, or maybe even any one of these. Maybe even this guy right here. Maybe even he could be a hero. I mean, you never know. Who am I kidding? Not this lazy bum. But that's my point exactly. You already have an idea for what a hero is in your head. And High Noon knows that. When they're making that movie, they want you to have an image of a hero in your head, especially a Western hero. I mean, look at this cast and tell me they're not about to give you the most generic Western plot you've ever seen. But as a matter of fact, this isn't the most generic Western plot you've ever seen. High Noon uses that well known presentation of heroism in all the Westerns to tell a unique story with its own heroes, at, well, at the same time, antagonists. So today I'm going to be talking about three characters: Kane, Harvey, and Miller. Let's start off with Harvey. Harvey in this film is the deputy to Kane's marshal. He's young, tall, broad, handsome, as even described in the film. But throughout the film, we see his true colors. He's a yellow bellied coward. In a different classic Western, Harvey might have been the young deputy that saves Kane against his fight against the odds. But in this one, that's not the case. That presentation that we are so used to out of a young hero doesn't show up. Harvey, despite the facade, is not actually a hero, no matter how he can be presented as. In a sense, you want Harvey to fight against his cowardism, to change his mind and help Kane. At the very end of his time on screen, it feels like he's about to help Kane until he shows his true intentions. You are incredibly disappointed in Harvey, but you're also surprised because, well, at this point, you weren't used to seeing something like this. Next, I want to talk about the antagonist of High Noon, Frank Miller. Now, don't think about what Frank Miller looked like. Think about what the rest of his gang looked like: dirty, grungy, full of sweat. They look like classic old Western villains. Throughout the film, we are given a description of Frank Miller and all the evil deeds he has done. He sounds like a terrible dude, and through just the words of the town folk, you think he'd look like just the rest of his gang members. But when he steps off that train, you're in for a totally different surprise. A nice presentation. He looks nothing like the rest of his gang members. Frank is clean shaven, looks nice, good hat, good clothes, no sweat on him. Compared to the grunginess of the rest of his gang, Frank doesn't look like a villain. And through that presentation alone, it throws you for a bit of a loop. The ideas of what you thought this movie had in mind are completely thrown out the window the minute Frank steps off that train. He doesn't look exactly like you thought he would. He ends up looking like the hero in this case. And the way a lot of townsfolk talk about him, maybe he is the hero in this case. Maybe Kane's been the bad guy all along. Finally, that brings us to the last, but arguably the most important character in this whole film: Will Kane, the marshal. Now, think about how Will Kane looked at the beginning of the movie. I mean, he was looking pretty dapper for a dude getting married. And at that point, you had this idea that, oh, yeah, he's the hero. No doubt about it. But as the movie wore on and the townspeople slowly started to turn on Kane, Kane's presentation slowly started to deteriorate or look vastly different than at the start of the movie. His clothes are torn, he looks sweaty and concerned, he's got blood on him with a fight with Harvey. Kane doesn't look like the hero we saw in the beginning. He actually slowly starts to look like one of the grungy villains we saw at the beginning. It kind of makes you lose faith in Kane. And you, as the audience, change how you thought this movie was going to end. At first, you thought it was going to be completely fine.
He's got this in the bag. Easy 1v4.
But as the movie progresses, your faith in Kane decreases, so instead, your reaction probably looks a little bit more like this.
He lived? Alright.
In fact, maybe there's some of you out there who actually wanted him to look like this. The way this film uses presentation is not genius, but pretty good. You have these already preconceived notions of what you think is going to happen once the plot starts rolling, but it kind of throws it all away out the window. It wants to tell a unique story and it uses the presentation of its characters to do that. Despite Kane's presentation deteriorating throughout the film, that doesn't make him any less of a hero than he was at the beginning of a film. Yeah, it's a harder challenge, but the presentation was there to kind of trick you. You were always supposed to remember that Kane is the best marshal the town has ever had. He has made the town prosper unlike ever before. That's not to say that presentation isn't important. Presentation is very important in film. It's a great way for the audience to understand who is who in just a quick glance. Presentation allows you to maybe get a quick idea of who might be the hero and who might be the villain. But it's not all that makes the hero. Presentation is there to just give you an idea, but what makes a hero is the choices they make and the way the character is written. And I think High Noon kind of expanded on that in a world where heroism was very one note. And I think that should be celebrated. Now, before I go, I want to ask you all an important question that relates to the question I asked earlier. When you thought of what a hero could be, did you ever think about yourself? Have a good one and stay heroic.